What would be your 3 favorite peptides for any of these issues?
Ladies, if you're going to go there, you're going to need to speak to a functional medicine practitioner. And there are an increasing number of them who are familiar with and using these compounds in their practice. I encourage you to seek out one of these people. But having said that, Zora mentioned gut health issues. And we know that leaky gut and the whole GI tract at all stages of life is challenged, but the older we get, the more challenged it gets. And frankly, in the world that we live in right now, it's almost like you need to do regular maintenance to keep it going. One thing that I think we sometimes forget is that health is a continuum. We keep changing. And because we live in a world with so many stresses and strains, whether it's stress, actually, whether it's EMFs, whether it's exposure to toxins. I'm in Toronto right now. We can't even see the sky today because there's so much smoke around, right? We're kind of living in a world where our bodies are constantly having to deal with a lot of external stressors coming in. So if we talk about the gut, BPC 157 is the champion of gut health. On its own, it can help to heal the gut. It can be combined with other peptides to augment that. But if I had to pick one peptide for gut health, it would be BPC 157. And the nice thing about BPC is it can be used orally quite effectively for the gut. The other interesting thing about BPC is it also has some benefits for the brain. So it's not going to necessarily balance your hormones. And whenever we're talking about using a peptide, let me impress this upon you. It's always important to ask the question, what am I trying to correct? You're not trying to correct my hair is falling out. You're not trying, I mean, you are trying to correct that, but you need to understand, why is my hair falling out? Is my hair falling out because I'm not eating enough protein? Or is my hair maybe falling out because I'm eating the protein, but I'm not able to digest it properly and absorb it? Or is my hair falling out because I've got some kind of inflammation going on, or there's some kind of problem with the microbiome in my scalp? It can be hormonal. So it can be a lot of different things. People ask me, can I use a peptide for name the symptom? My answer is always going to be, do we understand why this symptom is happening? Because it's only when we understand why the symptom is happening that we can start to think about, is it an immune issue? Should we be using Thymosin Alpha-1 to help to bring up the innate immune system? Because it might be something autoimmune that's going on. So I will leave you ladies with the peptides that are very interesting for the gut are BPC 157. There's also a peptide called KPV, which is an anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial peptide. There's another peptide called larazotide, which specifically helps to seal the tight junctions in the gut. You can find that trio in an oral supplement by a company called Level Up Health in Australia. If you go to my website and you go to my Nat Recommends page, there's a supplement section there. So that's the BPC with the KPV, the larazotide. There's another peptide called VIP, which is also great for the gut. So we start with BPC 157, but know that there's an array of peptides that can be helpful. The second peptide in the longer chain peptides is Thymosin Alpha-1. So Thymosin Alpha-1 originates, it's one of the peptides made by the thymus gland. And what it does specifically is it's very anti-inflammatory, and it also increases the activity of the innate immune system, which is very often quite depressed with respect to the part of the immune system that deals with the outside, the Th2. So we have Th1 and Th2. It brings up Th1. So very often with Thymosin Alpha-1, it's kind of like this salve. For example, Dr. Elizabeth Yurth, who I know you know very well, when I interviewed her a couple of years ago, when she was talking about when she's dealing with patients of hers, because she's a medical doctor, so she has patients, when she's dealing with patients who have a lot of weight to lose, very often before she gets them started on a weight loss program and whatever they're doing, she'll have them do about a month of this Thymosin Alpha-1 peptide just to help to bring down inflammation and to rebalance the immune system, because the immune system is involved in our body's ability to release weight. If we go over to the bioregulators, what is postmenopause or menopause? What are the systems that are being most affected? So the bioregulator that we always start with is the pineal gland bioregulator. And the reason for that is because it touches every system in the body. It touches immunity. It touches the brain. It is very powerful for circadian rhythm. It can help to reestablish your circadian rhythm. It normalizes melatonin production. So in elderly adults, it was shown to bring melatonin levels back up to that of, say, a 40-year-old. Melatonin is the most powerful antioxidant in our body. It also has very powerful anti-cancer. Well, what's interesting about Epithalon, or the pineal bio-regulator, is that it has anti-tumor activity. As we're aging as women, we're starting to think about our sleep is going to hell in a handbasket. We've got to modulate that. We've got to get that normalized. So that circadian cycle and melatonin production, our chances of certain cancers start to go up as well. So anything that can help to mitigate that is going to be incredibly helpful to us. The other thing that the pineal gland bioregulator does is it activates an enzyme called telomerase. And telomerase helps to maintain the length of telomeres, which is those shoelaces on the ends of your DNA that every time your DNA replicates, you lose a little bit of that telomere. And once the telomere gets too short, the DNA can no longer replicate. So it can also help to restore and to normalize. Okay, so it's always normalized because we don't want our telomeres to be a mile long, because now our chance of cancer goes up. So there's, in nature, in our bodies, we're always looking to hit the sweet spot, right? Now, its next superpower, the pineal gland bioregulator, is that it is the master endocrine regulator. It's the conductor of the whole endocrine system. So that's the system that regulates your hormones, all of them. So anything that's going to do that from a top-down approach is going to be incredibly helpful and useful for us as we're aging.
That one is the pineal gland one is Epithalon, right? Is that the one?
So this is very important. So it is Epithalon. So Epithalon, Epithalon, sometimes with an H between the T and the O, just to make things a little more confusing. So that is the synthetic form of epithalon or Endolutin. Remember, I told you they all have multiple names. Epithalon is the actual extract of the pineal gland that has been prepared for an intramuscular injection. That is the most powerful form of this bioregulator, and it's literally pretty much only available in Russia. So to be clear, epithalon is the mama, if you will. Endolutin is the trademark name for the extract of the pineal gland that has been prepared for oral use. So we take that as a capsule. It's not quite as strong as epithalon, but it's still very powerful. Then Epithalon is the synthetic form. So it's just the amino acid. So if, let's say, someone is a vegan and says, I will not touch any product that is taken from an animal's body, then for you, Epithalon will be what is most acceptable to you. It is the synthetic form of that little peptide chain found in epithalon or Endolutin that hits the money mark with the pineal gland.
But that would be less effective than, say, the injectable one, or...
So I don't know that it would be less effective. The party line out of Russia is that the synthetics are faster acting, but maybe the effects don't last quite as long. Mm-hmm. And they're also really useful for people who have a very, very sensitive system, like who have got a lot of autoimmune issues. For those people, the synthetic might actually be a better entry into the use of bioregulators versus the ones, all the cofactors and stuff. So there's maybe a little bit more for somebody to react to in there. What I will tell you is, from my community, we have 4 years of people using and coming back and talking about these things, is that sometimes we come across people that they're hypersensitive. Their immune system is on hypervigilant alert. And for them, sometimes they have to really reduce the dose of these things to tolerate them. But we see that more with the oral capsules.
How long do the peptides take to work for the average I don't know, let's think of a woman going through menopause who wants to solve her.
That's a really good question. And I have a really shitty answer for that. Excuse my French. It depends on what else you're doing to support the system. If someone's in hormone chaos and they don't have access to anything else to help balance their hormones, and they're taking Epithalon, it's not going to be able to do everything for you. These bioregulators are really powerful and they're very interesting, and they are an addition to a full protocol. So when we look at the literature on the bioregulators, there's some really interesting literature. Let's say, for example, people who suffer from COPD, so chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which is a really serious and degenerative kind of respiratory disease. the interesting thing about the Russians, they're like, okay, we've got this bioregulator called bronchogen, which is for the lungs, and it addresses the bronchioles, the bronchi. But we also have medication that can be quite effective. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have one group of people only taking the medication, and then we're going to have a second group of people taking the medication and the bioregulator. And what they found is that the people taking the medication, they got the results that they would have expected from the medication, but the people who took the medication and the bioregulator actually did a lot better and had longer lasting results. To me, the magic of the bioregulators is understanding that sometimes on their own, they can be very helpful, but very often, sometimes it's about stacking them with all the other things, and sometimes even in certain cases with medication. Because we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Like, I know that in this space, we love to trash conventional medicine and blah, 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 but we have to acknowledge that there's really useful stuff in that toolkit. There's things, frankly, that it's what's enabled us to live long enough to care about how well we age. 50, 60, 70 years ago, you just didn't want to die. Mm-hmm. Now, we know we're not going to die, but now we're really worried about what our last 30 years on Earth is going to look like.
That's actually, it coincides a lot with Dr. Walter Longo's work in that he's shown that, say, the fasting, for example, which he loves to research. And when he did the same studies, similar studies where you have people taking the chemo, then the people taking the chemo with the fasting, and they 100%. Had better results.
And I would say fasting is a critical piece of the equation. Using a good senolytic formula is another critical piece of the equation. I feel like one of the mistakes that we make in our world right now, and it's not our fault, but we're getting bombarded with this does this amazing, this urolithin A is amazing for mitophagy, and spermidine is amazing for something else, and this supplement is amazing for something else. And so we start adding and adding and adding and adding. What we forget is, what can we take away? What do we need to remove? And fasting is a huge piece of this, because when we fast, we get rid of those old cells. Now, spermidine and urolithin A, of course, they also drive mitophagy and autophagy, but sometimes just not doing can be more powerful than doing yet another thing. Anyway, going on with our menopausal lady. So if she only had one bioregulator, I would probably pick the pineal gland bioregulator, but I can sit here and make an argument for the adrenal bioregulator, because so many of us need support for our adrenal glands. The thyroid bioregulator, because so many of us need support for our thyroid gland, which is a part of that, kind of chaos that hits us as we're transitioning through menopause. Like, everything starts to go, it's like all the withdrawals you've made out of the bank's calling in the loan. Right. So if we haven't built that resilience back into the system, we end up feeling really depleted, and things start to go sideways in a million different ways. But there's an ovarian bioregulator that I do believe has some really great benefits, particularly for women in perimenopause. So as you're transitioning, it's not like we're going to stop menopause, but if we take the pineal gland bioregulator and pair it with the ovarian bioregulator, they seem to work together really nicely. For a woman who's concerned about her cardiovascular health, maybe there's a history in her family, maybe her doctor has told her that she's got some issues, then I would say the blood vessel bioregulator and the heart bioregulator are going to be super important. But the blood vessel bioregulator, if you said, Nat, you only get 3, it would be the pineal gland, the thymus gland for immunity, and then the blood vessel. If we can get nutrients to the cell and remove waste products, if we can give a boost to our immune system, and if we can get that master control kind of re-regulated a little bit, we've done a lot of work here. And we can now move forward with our positive lifestyle by sleeping, focusing on sleep, which the pineal gland bioregulator may help with, but focusing on sleep, focusing on all the things that bring us to good sleep.
And so much more, like you said, when it's the pineal gland and in the pineal bioregulator, it does so much more than just work on your sleep. So I think those are the best. I think those are the best combinations. I would have to agree with you.